standing. 4 seconds left. Daniels in the gun. Here comes the rush. Under pressure. Steps up. Throws it. Ball is knocked down. It's loose on the field. The Illini have it. And the game is over. The Illini have knocked off Kansas. Have sprung an upset on a Saturday night here in
You know, you're more than just football. You know, like you help people figure out who they are, what their story really is. How do you help the people you love figure out who they really are? Like for instance, like your daughters. Like, how will you help them? Figure out who they really are.
Great question. So we don't have a lot of slogans or sayings, but we do have a few things around the building. But I do talk to our players every day about 3 things, right? So I think every day when you wake up, we don't write them down. We don't put them on print. It's just 3 things we say every day should strive to be, right? So the first thing is get up every day and do what's right, right? So 35-mile-an-hour speed zone, go 35. Red light means stop, green light means go, right? Like my daughters could tell me that. They're 6 and 4, right? Like do what's right. So I think a lot of people say they do the right thing, but I don't know if they actually do that, correct? So that's one thing every day we always talk to our players about doing, right? The second thing, which, I think affects all of us, especially in a community, in a university, 50,000 students with people from all over the world, right, is just respect everyone, right? I'm not saying you got to be best friends. I'm not saying you got to go to dinner together. But I think the more that this world can figure out the people that maybe they don't look the same, talk the same, walk the same, speak the same, maybe not the same religion, not the same family histories, maybe not the same socioeconomic backgrounds, whatever it is, but if you can respect everyone, right? Like I think in our world, especially, I have 120 student athletes every year who come from all over this country, all over different backgrounds, histories, religions. The more those 120 grow together, the more that we'll play together, right? And that is a little bit of an example of here on campus, right? And then probably the third thing and the best thing that you're kind of referencing is I always tell our players, just be the best you. As a head coach, I've been doing this 16 years. I've been very blessed to have a lot of great players, right? Like, from J.J. Watt, Russell Wilson, to Devin Witherspoons to, guys that have won Outland trophies with Joe Thomas, first-round ballot Hall of Famer, right, to the players that we have in our building now. I don't want to have the next Joe Thomas. I don't want to have the next, Trey Flowers, the next Devin Witherspoon. I want to have the next best version of the person that's here. And I think it's very important that in life that, to a certain level, if you just try to continue every day to try to be the best version of yourself, usually good things will happen.
What did you learn about team morale after the passing of your mother? May she rest in peace.
Thank you. What I probably learned in that moment was I'm a son that's grieving, right? I just happen to be the head coach at the University of Illinois. And because of that position, there's a lot of attention drawn to it. I get it. But, I'm still just a son that lost his mother, right? And the one position that I'm in every day as a head coach, a lot of times, unfortunately, I have to be around young men when they're in those moments themselves, right? And I just always go back to that. Like I was at that time I was a 52-year-old that was sad that he lost his mother, but I needed to remember I had 52 years of this life with her, right? And whether you get them for 2 years or 50 years or 52 years, you got to take and remember the days that you had, not the one that you lost, right? And I always try to tell that to our players when they're in moments of grief, right? Like, unfortunately, as a head coach, you deal with kids that lose grandparents and parents and sometimes siblings. And one of the things that I've always tried to, stress to them is don't remember the end, remember the journey, right? And, for me as a head coach, when that happened, to have so many of my players reach out to me, right? And then, to physically put their hands on me when they saw me and give me a hug or say encouraging words was really special. And, I think it's a testament to the kind of players we have.
One of the interesting things you have in your brain because of how you work is how to spot, like good players, bad players.
Yeah.
But one of the most important things, because we're building a team and a culture, is like, how do you spot a player before they have like attitude problems, and how do you, make them come together?
Yeah. A great question. I think the one of the things I've learned, and I didn't know this early on in my career, right, is, everybody enjoys good conversations. We're having a good conversation. It's easy. It's an interview, right? But you actually probably grow the most through difficult conversations, right? Conversations you don't want to have, or ones that you're not looking forward to having, right? Or they're ones that are going to create angst or emotions or energies that sometimes can be negative, right? But what I've learned really is, to truly grow and to trying to get someone to maximize who they are and be the best version of themselves, you can't let negative moments or energies or opportunities just pass by. You have to seize them while they happen. I learned early on, I had a linebacker who, in my opinion, wasn't doing the things he needed to do to have success. And I was an assistant, wasn't even a coordinator, but I was coaching this young man, and he could be a really special player. I saw his practice habits, his preparation weren't where they needed to be, and I didn't address them immediately. I was kind of just hoping he was growing out of it and make himself a better player in the long run. And then, lo and behold, it's a Saturday afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon. We're down by 2 scores in a game that we should be up, and because we're not playing the way we want and the way we should play, all of those emotions I was feeling towards him were released in a very, very inopportunistic time, right? They came out in a moment when it would be the least advantageous for everybody involved, right? And what I quickly realized after the defeat of that day was, never leave or let something hang out there that could come back in the most difficult time to imagine, right? Like, it's much better to, if you have a situation that you need to address, tackle it with all your energy and attitude, address it, put it behind you, and move forward. That's the best policy every day.
You've been in the football business for so long, right? What have you learned about building relationships with other teams, players, everyone who's involved in the sport, and just in general?
Well, the world comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
Like, so when you young men are probably in your mid-20s, early 20s, right? Like, early in life, you realize that life does happen, right? And things go forward. But now to be, a 50-plus-year-old football coach, right? There are so many times where life has come full circle for me in a relationship that maybe I had, whether it was a what I would say a monumental relationship, like somebody that I was coaching or dealing with, or maybe somebody I just met for a day or a few days or a week. And, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you come across and they're like, hey, I met this guy and he said he met you and they really enjoyed your time or this effect that you had, or maybe it's a speech or a talk or a conversation that we had and how it comes back full circle. So I always just tell everybody, just really appreciate and understand that every time you have a conversation with one, you're either building or destroying a relationship, not only that moment, but also in the future, right? And I think it's really hard to be consistent. One of the things that I really preach to our players and our coaches, consistency is a really hard word to spell, but it's also a really hard word to do, right? And everybody likes to think they're consistent, but it's really hard day in and day out to be the same person. But the more you can do that, the more real you'll become to the people that are around you.
And what keeps you going?
What keeps me going, in this world, in the football world, just the desire to do something in Illinois that's never been done. Josh Whitman, our AD, and I have a kind of an unwritten agreement that we're going to do anything every day to do something that's never been done here at Illinois and to sustain the success. So there's a lot of motivations within the Smith Center here for everybody that puts on that helmet, to everybody that wears that eye, but also anybody that has that eye on their chest because that's where they went to school, right? That's where their diploma is from. That's where they went to the University of Illinois too, and there's a lot of motivation in that. And then I think in the bigger picture, I have a beautiful wife and 2 daughters who literally are counting on me for their success, right, their sustainability, and that never goes unnoticed on my daily journey, right? Like a lot of times I'm in here in the building way before they're ever even up, and anytime I can lay my eyes on them, even if it's put them to bed, share a moment with them where I can take them to school, do something like a normal dad can do, those moments are pretty special to my heart.
When you look back to your career as a dad, coach, son, everything else, how much of it was luck? How much of it was hard work and consistency?
Great question. I do think you create your own luck, right? Like, I don't think there's luck that's involved. You can hit lotto, right? You can hit Powerball and all that goes into it, but usually things that are just given to you don't last. The things that you earn, they last a lifetime, right? So, the relationship I have with my father started at birth, right, and continues to this day, and it's changed and it's evolved, right? Now, as a father of two, I can always think about our time together, but also watch and appreciate him as a grandfather now to my daughters, and how much he enjoys that moment, right? So that's something that's earned to have that relationship. In this building, I don't think it's luck that we've been able to have 2 back-to-back semesters of the highest GPA in school history. I don't think it's luck that we went to a bowl game a year ago that was the first January bowl game they've seen in a long, long time. So I know it's not where we want to be, but I know we're definitely closer to where we can be here at the University of Illinois than ever before. And I know that comes from a lot of hard work, not just by us as coaches, not by me as a head coach, but by our players, our fan base. Our fan base, they show up on Saturdays, but a lot of those people provide financial support that in today's world is just as important as anything else that allows us to create an advantage over our opponent.
How often do you think about the future on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always tell our guys, right, like when you walk in this building every day, there's a couple signs, doors walking in, doors walking out, and I want to give them a plan when they're walking in and when they're walking out. But anything they do in this building, I can promise you, has been thought out, detailed, and planned way beyond the moment that they walk into, right? And to get to where we want to be, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken before anybody arrives. And I think that's our daily motivation. I think for us as coaches, we got to kind of be a little bit ahead of where the players are. For me as a head coach, I definitely need to be a little bit ahead of where our coaches are. So there's a futuristic plan literally in my mind. Every day I kind of roll into work. I love a cup of coffee, right? So I'll ride into work and I'll have that cup of coffee 10 minutes in, and I'll say to myself, what the heck's going to happen today that I have no idea is going to happen? And then that's when you really got to rely and build your reactions off of what you know, because it happens every day, right? We've had this meeting scheduled for a while, right? But prior to this, there's been 2 or 3 things that have already happened today that I didn't know were going to happen until today happened, and you got to be prepared for those moments.
Would you consider yourself a man of habit?
Oh, I would say so. Yeah, I think as we all get older, you get into routines, right? So one of the things that we have on the door walking out is to live your routine, right? I think young people in particular, your routine early in life is usually set by your parents, right? When are you getting up? When are you going to bed? What are you eating? What are you wearing? What are you going to do during the course of the day? That agenda is usually set by your parents that are around you. You go to college and all of a sudden, you know what? You can wear what you want to wear. You go to bed when you want to go to bed. You can get up when you want to get up. But there are repercussions for all of that, right? If you want to go to bed late and get up early, there's going to be a problem. If you want to do certain things and don't have accountability to another area of your life, you're going to have problems. So for me as a head coach, I really have kind of structured my life in the outlay of it to just kind of continue to be proactive in my planning so that the day when it happens, I'm ready for that moment.
Football coaches, let's say that we go back to the 1800s and football was not really a thing. Would you see would you be someone like Napoleon, like in the field, or would you be someone more of a, more technical, what would your role be? Let's say if you were in the 1800s, more.
I think at the root of coaching is teaching, right? So teachers have been around forever, right? So I don't know what capacity I would be in, but I would like to think I'd probably be in some form of education and teaching, working with young people and try to get them to go someplace they've never been. I think the greatest definition of a teacher, an educator, a coach is to get someone to get to a place in their life where they're somewhere they never thought they'd be. And they can look around and say, how did this just happen, right? And I know I did that and experienced it as a college student athlete, that the reason I got into coaching was I was sitting at a point in my life and I was looking around, I'm like, how did I get to where I am today? Because I really didn't even realize it was going on until I'm here, right? And that's the revelation that I think hopefully a lot of our players are able to share, is that hey, I'm truly at a place right now, academically, athletically, and socially, that I'm doing some things that I never would have thought would have been possible if we hadn't been here.
So raising the ambitions of others is one of the best things you can do with your life, because it takes very little, but when you see the return, it's special.
Yep.
In one word, how do you, if you have to put it in one word, what's the secret to raising the ambitions of others?
Consistency. I think in today's world, kids in our program especially gravitate to what we say and do because we're consistent in our approach. I think in today's world, there are so many times prior to their existence of being here that maybe they had a parent a loved one, a coach, an administrator, a teacher, somebody, a community leader who hadn't been able to be consistent in their delivery of what they promised, right? And, if you go through and interview 120 players in our program, hopefully one of the things that they would say is that Coach B's the same guy every day, right? And I say that because as a leader of an organization, my 16th year as a head coach, one of the greatest values you can bring to an institution or a program or a relationship is consistency. And consistency in everything that you do, right? So we have a consistency here for me as a head coach with our players, but I need to be consistent with my staff. I need to be consistent with our support staff. I need to go home and be consistent to my wife. I need to go home and be consistent to my children, right? I need to be consistent to our community, our athletic director, our administration, our university administration. It's just really hard to do that for certain people. For me, it's kind of a way of life, but I really, as I've gone through this thing, I realize how hard it is for people to really, truly understand, A, what that means, and more importantly, B, what it takes to do that.
What showed you the importance of this consistency? Like
probably my parents.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt, my parents, my mom and dad. I pretty much knew the answer before I asked it every time, right? Because they were being very consistent in their approach. I literally didn't know if they knew the word yes in their lifetime, because every time I would ask them to do something that I thought might be a little bit intriguing or awareness, the answer probably was going to be no, because they were looking out for my best interest, right? But they said yes a lot to the things that they knew would grow and culturally put me in a best position to be successful. I'd been I walked on at the University of Iowa, became a scholarship student athlete, became a captain, had a cup of coffee with the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL, and then started my coaching career. I began my coaching career, and I've been rewarded. You do a good job, you get promoted and kind of move forward. And then there come a point in time where I was told by my head coach, my athletic director at the time, Barry Alvarez, that I was going to be the next head coach, right? And he told me that, and I had to keep it quiet. But then on the same account, a couple of days before it became live, I was able to call my parents and tell them, right? And I was on my phone, and I called them and said, hey, can you both get on the phone? I'm going to tell you something. I told them I was going to be the next head coach university at that time, the University of Wisconsin. And they were very emotional, right? And they were very shocked. And, but I said, when I was getting ready to hang up the phone, I said, thank you for everything you did to prepare me for this moment, right? It was an 11 o'clock curfew, right? I didn't get a midnight curfew. I had an 11 o'clock curfew. Everybody else at 12 o'clock or later. They kept me at 11, right? They protected me from things I didn't know, right? And for me to get that job at the age I did, I know that I would not have been there without their support. And sometimes support isn't the easiest or the most enjoyable thing to do, but it's what you need to do. And as a parent, that's very, very clear. So, I think without a doubt, I learned that from my parents day in and day out.
Besides consistency, is there anything you're doing with your daughters now that, 60 years or 50 years later, like your daughters will say the same thing? Like what will your daughters say about you besides consistency?
Just a little thing, like there's a lot that, like, I love my job for what it is, but there's a lot of times where I'll go several days without seeing my daughters, right? Like literally, when I'm traveling, for a week, that's one thing, right, in recruiting. But, during the season, I usually will see them on Sunday morning, and then I may not see them visually in front of me until Thursday, right? So 4 to 5 days without seeing kids that you love, right? Like I see them on the monitor when I'm watching them sleep at night, and I can hear them when they're going to bed through a monitor that I'm watching their mom put them down, but I literally won't visually see them. So I have a daily journal that I've really kept since birth, that I write a journal entry in every day that shares something that either they did or I did that I thought they would enjoy when I give it to them, right? And my goal and aspiration is to give them 3 volumes, because they're 5-year windows each, to give them 3 volumes of their life from 0 to 16 that shares that even though I wasn't with them that day, I was thinking of them on a daily basis, right? And I think moments like that, I replicate things that my mom and dad did for me, and I got to believe that will carry forward with them.
That's a wonderful gift.
Yes.
Looking back at your life, what are some of the failures that you would say you're grateful for?
Oh, great question. I think especially early in life, I say this all the time now to our players, right? You learn more about yourself through moments of adversity than you do through success, right? And I know for a fact, early in my life, I was very competitive. I had two older brothers that were a lot better than me in a lot of different things, but they would routinely beat me, in things that we did athletically, but also physically beat on me a little bit here and there, right? And I think those moments made me grow, right? And even though they weren't fun to live through, the things that I shared with you, my parents definitely at times didn't allow me to do things that other people would, right? Or other parents would allow kids to do because I didn't understand why I could never go skiing. My dad didn't want me to go skiing. He didn't want me to hurt myself because he knew I'd have a chance to play college football. There's different things that, that happened on a routine basis. And then as I got into college, and you probably learned that, I tore my ACL ligament, right? And I literally thought football was going to be gone for a long time. I rehabbed it and played. I tore my ACL and I played 7 days later, right? And it made that appreciation for what you had that much stronger because you thought it might be gone, right? And then in coaching, for sure, there's a great quote. It's one I carried. Confucius says, "Choose a job you love and never work a day in your life," right? So I became a coach in my early 20s, and now at 54 years of age, I really, truly don't know if I've worked a day in my life, right? I've definitely worked. You put in long hours, it's not out of the norm, to put in, to get up at 5 and go to bed at midnight and put in an 8, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-hour day, right? And the reason you do that is you realize that hard work will get you to where you want to be. But during those moments, the things that set you back, you got to learn from them so they don't happen again, right? And they've literally happened on a daily basis every day of my life.
So hard work is a big component, but how do you also work smartly?
Great question. So when we walk in the building, we have 4 things we talk about: do your job, work hard, be here, and do put the team first. So I classify that work hard to work smart. Work hard isn't necessarily meaning stay up long, work, sweat longer or put in more activity. It's about how you do your work, right? And I think in today's world, with all of the technology that's available to us, all of the resources, all the things that you have that can make your job a little bit easier, you still can't put a price tag on knowing and understanding what your work is and how to do it, right? And so I'm probably a little bit still old school about certain things that I believe in that you got to do personally to make your brain process it. I learn things much better when I write things out, right? So I give out daily staff notes. My coaches will tell you they're called yellow pads, right? And I make yellow notes on yellow stationery, and I write on them all the time, and I hand them to them. And then the first thing they do is take a picture and download them into their iPad, right? And I laugh because that's their way. Most of them are younger now than me, right? And that's how they learn. But in theory, I wouldn't know what's on those notes. I don't even have to look at those notes when I'm going over them because I know what's on them because I wrote them, right? And I don't get that same learning from typing, right? So that's kind of why I continue to use my methodology. It works for me. But I do think working smart is a big part of today's world because, it's just not enough time in the day, right? So you got to be able to understand what you're doing, the allotment you have of time, and how much effectiveness it can be.
What advice would you have for young students, high school students, college students who want to live a life fully and want to discover their full potential?
I think it's so clear in today's world, right, that you can literally do anything that you want to do, right? Like, I understand that certain things are going to pay different scales and volumes earlier than later, right? My first year as a coach, I made $6,000, right? I lived in the basement of a garage for $100, right? And didn't ever foresee anything financially. I got into coaching because I loved the high that it gave me to work with young men and get them to where they wanted to be, right? The electricity that you saw from seeing someone achieve something they didn't know they could normally do, right? So I have 2 daughters who, I don't know if they're going to be football players or football coaches, but I do feel that whatever they chose to go into, I will give them 110 support, and I believe they'll achieve whatever they want to do, right? I think that's the biggest thing is just to believe in what you believe in, to go at it full go, never look back, never take no for an answer. If there's one thing I would say, I had to stress that when I came in this building, even to adults, never take no for an answer, right? Like, people have a million different reasons why they could tell you no, but until it's final, or it's final that you can't see the end is going to come, or that the end is inevitable. Never take no for an answer, right? Just continue to find a way to get to the answer that you want to achieve, and usually things will happen. I got a tattoo on my cap that says, "What you conceive in your mind and believe in your heart, you will achieve." Right, and I really believe that that's a key to life.
Then last thing before we end, we have a section called Overrated and Underrated. So I give you a topic or a statement, you tell me what you think. Gifting your wife puppies, overrated or underrated?
It's probably underrated because I think it's been a gift that's gone forever, right? Like I remember pulling out our oldest dog, Lucy, of my pocket on a plane and handed it to her, and the reaction that she had that day to where Lucy is. Lucy's getting up there in age right now, and I know we love that dog more than ever anything right now.
Next one, wrestling, underrated or overrated?
You know what? It's probably underrated as well. The value of wrestling isn't the competitive nature of the sport. It's that one man enters the mat and one man leaves the mat, right? Like, obviously against one another, so there's one guy on, one guy off, right? But it's a one-on-one battle that you are exposed to everybody on how you compete and whether you have success or failure. I think the value in that is priceless in today's world.
Football, overrated or underrated?
Definitely underrated.
Soccer.
Oh, soccer. Well, you got to clarify. It's soccer. I don't know much about the soccer, so I'll probably go overrated.
Overrated. Cool. And then last one.
Social media. Unfortunately, probably overrated because there's so much importance on it and likes. And I got to be honest with myself. Like if I have a social media post that has a certain number of response, like everybody gets excited.
Yeah.
And so there's great value in that, but I also truly understand that it's just words, right? And in today's world, I think there's too much emphasis on what people write on social media or what they see on social media. Unfortunately, what you see on social media a lot of times isn't even true, right? Yeah. So the value and that's done to our society. And to me, like there was a point in my life growing up that like if you read something that was naturally written, you just believed it to be true. Like you understood that there was probably a lot of truth to that matter. And unfortunately today, with false narratives, false accounts, fake narratives, fake news, however you want to say it, like there's a lot of things out there that you truly don't understand if they're real or not, right? Like I'll literally see something in our world, like, is this really true? And then they're like, no, I'll post it as a parody account. I'm like, well, come on, man. So I think there's probably a lot of overratedness to it, unfortunately.
Coach, this has been a pleasure.
Absolutely awesome. Absolutely.
I think besides everything that you do, is that you would have been successful in anything you do because of that word that you said, which is consistency. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you very much. I love.
Aye.